So the commanding officer of this carrier, USS Wasp, throws out wood chips from his high perch overlooking Gemini 9 and the recovery mission in the area that we're in right now. And when those chips hit the water, he can tell their relation to the ship as to whether we are actually moving. If that wood chip stays right in his line of vision, directly below where it hits, the job is done. The frogmen are waving at us now. They're that close.
So the astronauts, you can see, Don, the hatch is open. The astronauts waving. One frogman has just jumped off the collar of the spacecraft. There now, we can see the head of Stafford, who waves one hand, then clenches both hands and waves them. Cernan, too. As we look at it from here, Stafford, the command pilot, is on the right. Cernan on the left. Behind him, standing on the collar, one of the swimmers. Now they both wave. Stafford gives a thumbs up. Big smile.
That is a most welcome sight, and a couple of happy fellas right now.
Looks very relaxed. Both look very relaxed.
You get a good view there now, too, Bill, of the re-entry attitude control section, the small open end of the spacecraft. And the moment that Gemini 9 hits the water, or any spacecraft, there is a can in there of dye, which has like a vegetable material top, which dissolves instantly. The instant that craft hit the water in that position.
You know, Don, it's remarkable now, looking at Cernan, the pilot of Gemini 9, sitting there, leaning back a bit on the open hatch on his side. It almost looks like a man sitting in the back seat of a convertible on a Saturday afternoon somewhere.
I have long since given up trying to really realize what a fantastic thing we are eyewitness to. The whole thing is practically beyond comprehension. Where they have been, what they have done, and the almost tame manner in which we see them now.
And now, Don, the hatches have been closed.
I see that.
All three swimmers are getting back in the water, I think, or at least on the collar. This is now as we prepare to affix the lines to Gemini 9 and lift her out of the water, bring her up to this number 3 elevator of the Wasp, and bring her on board. And it'll be right here, a few feet from where we're standing, that Stafford and Cernan will set foot on United States soil. If you are willing to accept the premise that they do not take United States soil with them when they go aloft in Gemini 9. But the line is about to be fired.
That is the business end of the elevator we've been describing to you. And all these officials with the gun and the line which will go out are standing right on the edge where they have been probably for 20 minutes now. There'll be an official greeting by the ship's executive officer, and your NASA officials will probably be the first ones to say any words at all. The astronauts, I understand, will have a short, brief comment, as astronauts historically do. They speak briefly, tersely, and they are not known to be more than men of few words. What they do say, they usually make count.
The spacecraft, Don, now, it might be 100 yards from the number 3 elevator, riding the waves very, very well. A yellow collar affixed around the spacecraft, a yellow raft floating next to it, and another orange raft out there. 2 of the swim team are on the collar at the blunt end of the spacecraft. The other one appears to be up at the narrow end, and that green dye you mentioned trails out, portions of it 20, 25, 40 yards long from the back.
And it is a brilliant green, too, Bill. I imagine that 10,000 feet up, that stands out just like a line pointing right to Gemini 9.
Also still in the area of the spacecraft and still working, those smoke bombs which were dropped from the helicopters to mark their site. They're out a bit from the carrier now, but still out there, still providing smoke. Smoke which happily hasn't been needed for quite a while, because this was one which they took down with the eyes. They followed it all the way down.
5 frogmen in the water, Bill.
As Dr. Carpentier mentioned a moment ago, they were able to watch it on the main chute all the way down till it hit the water. And it didn't make a very big splash, he said. Now, as you've mentioned, Don, it's a delicate maneuver. to get a ship of this size alongside an item without that much size and get the two so positioned that one can recover the other.
There goes the line. The line has just been fired over. I would hope, optimistically, that you heard it over my own microphone here. The line is in the water, and a frogman is swimming out to it. I'll find out just as soon as I can. He's got the line. He's got it in tow. He's got it in his left hand, and he's side-stroking back. And I believe it's Denny Bowman, the chief of this frogman team, standing up and giving an affirmative wave of the arms at the bell end, the large end of the spacecraft. He's right on the edge of the color, that brilliant yellow color. This is quite a play of colors. There are two bright yellow life rafts in the water. There is one orange life raft in the water, the yellow flotation color, the brilliant green of the dye going for many, many yards out into the ocean now. And it almost looks brown rather than black, the spacecraft from our vantage point, just inside the hangar deck off elevator number 3. You've got touches of white, you've got red, you've got the black suits of the frogmen, and it shouldn't be any mystery then, telling you what kind of colors you've got to work with, why the camera fans go absolutely nuts over a situation like this. I don't know, but what 90% of the sailors on deck, in any position at all, to get near this scene, haven't been taking pictures at a pace like they have never done before. Unless, of course, they've been in a position to see a Gemini recovery or a Mercury spacecraft recovery before.
It's surprising, Don, that with the duration of Gemini flights we've had, with the fact that these two men have spent some 72 hours in flight, in space, and we have learned to live with that. We have learned to live with men in space for 2 weeks. And yet, when we get a recovery, a re-entry, and a spacecraft coming down quite close to the carrier, and we are perhaps 5 or 6 or 7 minutes away from complete recovery and the time when they will be on the deck, we begin to get a little impatient. Time, I think, moves much more slowly with each foot that the spacecraft approaches the carrier.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say that, Bill, because I thought maybe it was me. And I know that if you're sitting at home, listening and or watching, or both, that there must be a tendency to feel the same way. While they said it came down within 1.5 miles of the carrier, how come they're not there yet?
Now a crew of sailors is working, hauling on a line. The heat shield is now facing the elevator, the big blunt end of the spacecraft directly facing the elevator, as a crew of sailors hauls on a line which is connected through a pair of pulleys to that heat shield area of the spacecraft. Pulling it now with brute manpower,
and
that's still needed. That's still needed even in this space age.
A fine look we're getting now at that much talked about heat shield. And let's face it, if they didn't have that heat shield to come in with, well, we would never have an end of a mission such as we have right now. But you can very, very visibly and demonstrably see just what a fantastic beating that shield has to take coming back into the Earth's atmosphere.
And now as we stand on the hangar level between the sea state which prevails and the wave motion caused by the presence of the carrier itself, the waves are probably moving 6 to 8, possibly even more than that, feet out there. So that from time to time, even though we stand in elevated positions, the spacecraft bobs out of our sight, then comes back up again, and then back into view one more time. The rafts now, the two rafts seem to be separated from the spacecraft. Of course, the collar is still there. The crew continues to haul on the line.
You've got three frogmen, still with one of those life rafts, which is now just forward of elevator number 3. And we can see the line straightening out. The sure indication that directly below, we're going to hook onto a Gemini 9 spacecraft very, very shortly. Again, right in the middle of the elevator is situated a very, very heavily constructed steel dolly, which has 2 huge half-moon rings on it, which perfectly fit the configuration of Gemini 9 and will allow it to be set down in the manner you're used to seeing it when you see pictures of spacecraft moving through space with the small end forward as the nose of the spacecraft. In that manner, it will set down so that when the hatch doors are opened, both men can stand straight up. And, of course, the hatch doors are just slightly over to the side.
Here now on the hangar deck, Captain Gordon Hartley, commanding officer of the Wasp. He's, maybe 2 feet away from the red carpet, just back from the elevator. Just came down. His executive officer, Captain J.B. Schaefer, is already here. Captain Hartley now talking to some of the civilians on board.
Most of all,
he steps out on the elevator, is talking to some of the Marine Guards, some of his own sailors. He steps back now off the elevator, moves within the confines of the hangar deck once more, and stands here quite pleased, quite happy, ready to welcome astronauts Stafford and Cernan aboard his ship,
Bill
USS
Ryan.
Wasp.